Hi, Munashe. I'm so happy to finally have this call with you. I'm excited to hear about your journey, and not just for me. I'm excited for everyone else to hear your journey. And yeah, let's just jump right to it. Let's start with you telling us who you are and what are you currently studying? Where are you? And yeah, like just where are you right now in life?
Thank you. I'm excited to be on this call too. So my name is Munashe. I'm a third year accounting and finance student right now at the University of Edinburgh in the UK. And yeah, that's a basic intro of me.
And what are you currently studying in university?
Accounting and finance.
Accounting and finance. Okay, I can't
Yes.
wait to hear how exactly you decided to choose that course and how you actually let's start from there. How did you decide to settle for UK and why accounting?
So the UK was particularly because I already had like certain countries that I had in mind that I wanted to apply to. I was looking at uh countries that have good universities and like good work opportunities after. And why I then settled on applying to the UK is because they had a simpler application process and they still had quite a lot of the universities that I wanted to go to. In terms of how I chose accounting and finance. I think for me, it was looking at my strengths. So I studied accounting in high school and I thought I was very good at it and I actually enjoyed it so much. So I decided to go with something that I enjoyed doing and I just wanted to further my experience in that. Plus, I also looked at like what I wanted to do after, like where I wanted to work, what type of environment. And I thought a career in accounting or finance was something that would suit me. So that's how I chose my degree.
Nice. And how do you choose studying at the University of Edinburgh and not any other non-university in London?
So for me, like when you do your application to the UK, you send it to five universities. Initially, I did want to study in London, but after I got my offers, I actually looked at different things. Like it seemed like Scotland, Edinburgh, and London offered like similar opportunities, but like the cost of living was way better in Edinburgh. So ultimately, that's what ended up being my deciding factor because all the universities offered quite similar experiences,
Mhm.
and that was like the deciding factor.
Nice. And can you share with us your your experience with the application process, like the things that you had to do or the steps that you had to take before submitting the application till the point of submitting the application?
Of course. So for particularly when you're applying to the UK, you apply through this website called UCAS. So basically it lets you submit one application to five different universities. So basically you go on the website, you create an account, and then you fill in the application form where you put in your personal details, what you want to study, and other stuff like that. And then you write a motivation letter. So this is your personal statement, which will be sent to all the universities about why you want to study what you're doing, why you're a good candidate, and so on. And then you also need a reference letter that you can get from anyone, most likely your teachers. And then lastly, you just make a secure payment, like around £25, and then your application is sent. And then after that, I think you submit it in around January, and then you start hearing back after like 3 to 4 weeks from all the universities whether you have an offer or not. And then from there, you go, if you do have an offer, you go through the visa process. Yeah.
And the deadlines for the university are normally around which months?
So for most degrees, there's a set deadline for all UCAS applications. It's usually set around January. And then for other specific universities or specific programs, they might have varying deadlines. So you just need to look into when the deadlines will be. But if you're going into your more standardized degrees, it's usually on a set date around mid-January. Yeah.
And if let's say somebody's deadline is in January, right? um, when should they start working on the application?
Personally, I started working on my application, I think about 2 to 3 months before. I think that gave me enough time to fill in everything and really work on my motivation letter and do all the research of where I wanted to go, which universities, because there's so many choices you have to make before you submit your application. So I would recommend starting as early as possible. Again, if you are short in time, yes, you can start it quite closer to the deadline, but I feel like for a more smoother process, to start
Mm,
it as early as possible. Like there's
yeah,
no time that's too early to start.
yeah, no pressure while doing it. And then
Yeah.
also when you mentioned personal statements, when writing a personal statement, let's say specifically to the UK or even generally, like what are the tips or advices you would give a student who has never written such a thing, like such a motivational letter? What should they have in mind when they're crafting that, or like what exactly should they emphasize on their personal statements?
Huh, that's a good question. I feel like it's about focusing on your strengths. So for me personally, I knew what I wanted to study and what I wanted to do after, and I also like focused on my background. So I used that as the basis of my personal statement. So I talked about my background, where I was from, and how it related to what I wanted to study and my future motivations and the degree I wanted to work in. I wanted to study, and the so that was my main personal statement. And then I also focused on things like extracurricular activities near the end of the personal statement. I would say focus on what makes you you, what's your strengths, and try make that the highlight of your personal statement. And also don't forget to link it to what you want to study, why you want to study, and why you think you'd be a good candidate. So focus on your strengths, make them really see who you are, and show them that you're the best candidate for them to select. Yeah.
Nice. And while, like during the time that you were writing a personal statement, like what was the, I don't know, most challenging or the most exceptional part about it?
I think it was again trying to make my personal statement stand out. Like I was reading a lot of sample personal statements and they
Mm.
looked very interesting. Everyone had something unique in their personal statement. So I was trying to look for what was unique for me when I was writing my personal statement. So I feel like that was the most challenging aspect. Fortunately, I I talked to a few people and I was, oh, what do you think is unique about me that can set me apart? And then like I think I did end up finding something. I also took the extra step to like actually do more research in the actual courses that were being offered in my degree. And I also added that in. So I think it really showed that I knew what I wanted. And also I had a lot of motivation to do what I wanted to do. So for me, that was it.
Yeah, I think you mentioned something that's very important, which is feedback. Like I think I would also really advise anyone who is writing such statements or such, such writings that they should ask for feedback. Because sometimes
Yeah,
like you might miss out something, or you might just not know that like there's this particular strength that you have that everyone else has noticed, but you don't know about it. So yeah, that's very key. Were
love it.
there any key academic requirements for the particular program you chose, or also generally that you think someone who is applying to UK, they should know about particular academic requirements? Um,
So I think most universities actually have a page where they have all their degrees and then that they offer and all the requirements that they need. So if you know what you want to study and which universities you have, you literally can go on their website, search the degree you want, and they'll show you all the academic requirements you need. So including like grades, which subjects they take, which qualifications they accept, if you need to take any of the standardized tests. I feel like that's very helpful. So it's different for every degree. It's different for different universities, but like you can just search up online and you can find all the information about what qualifications you need.
I think the most vital thing that I'm hearing so far is research. Like, don't be lazy and just go on the internet, search and personalize it, or just know how to apply it on yourself. Um,
Yes.
were there any tests that you're supposed to take? And also, let's say like test test that tests that include like language proficiency and also any other tests. If there are, some countries require you to do some maths, or if you're going to the US, we all know that there's some exams you have to do. So yeah.
For me personally, I took A levels, so Cambridge. So I didn't need to take any extra tests when I arrived. Again, if you go on their website, they will tell you all the different uh tests that they accept and whether you need to like have like English proficiency afterward. So they'll tell you what they accept as English proficiency. So for example, if you did Cambridge, if you did O level and AS, that's considered enough. If you did IELTS, it's also considered enough. And there are a lot of different like qualifications that if you have done, is considered enough. If not, then maybe you may need to take the language proficiency.
And on that note, like what advice would you give to a student that has never discussed about career, like they've always been focused on grades and now they know that they're supposed to go to university and because they're good in mathematics or accounts, that's all they're thinking about. Like how would you advise them for someone who is confused on what course to take or they're not sure how successful that course will pave the way or something? What advice would you give them?
I think first and foremost is like first like come up like see which areas you're interested in. I feel like once you figure that out, it's easier to then go from there. I personally was fortunate enough to talk to quite a lot of different people who were in different industries. I asked them what it was studying like. I asked them what the job aspect was like. So I had more clarification of what different industries offered. And then in terms of job opportunities, I feel like again, you need to do the research because job opportunities maybe like back home are different from when you come to the UK. So usually there's so many websites that tell you like even if you go to the universities, they tell you what jobs you can get into after. They can tell you how easy it is to get a job if that's something you care about. So I feel like it's about talking to as many people as you can, knowing what you enjoy. I feel like focusing on something that you enjoy is very essential because if you don't like it, it'll be very hard to do it throughout university. And then again, do your research if you're going abroad because you're going to be living in a different country, which is probably going to be very different from the place you're living now. So I think those three things together is what I would recommend.
Yeah, and were there any specific deadlines during your application process aside from the application itself, like the whole application deadline? But were there also some deadline during that process steps that someone should really be keen about?
I think the most important deadline was the application. And then after, I think you also had a deadline to decide which university you're going to go to. So after you get all your offers, you have, I don't know how long it is to decide which university you want to go to. And then you have to accept and then decline the other four. And then after that, I feel like it's more internal deadlines with your university. So for me, I had deadlines in terms of like finding accommodation, my visa, because they need to be able to process all these things so that you can come here. So it's mostly that, yeah.
Awesome. And I just remembered, right? Like among the things that you're supposed to submit is a recommendation letter.
Yes.
And how did you go about, I don't know, getting a strong recommendation letter, or like who did you ask, it from? Yeah.
So for me, fortunately, I knew that I would probably need a recommendation letter early. So I think about a year before I needed my recommendation letter, I made sure that I started getting to know my teachers and so that they knew who I was. And if I was to ask them for a recommendation letter, they would actually know who they're writing it for. And then in terms of choosing, I wanted to study accounting and finance, so I went to my accounting teacher and asked her to write one. So I would recommend going to someone who knows you first of all, so that it can be more of a personalized recommendation letter. And then if you can, maybe ask someone who knows you, particularly in the degree that you want to work in, that you want to study in. So those are my two tips for finding a reference.
Awesome. Did you have, like, during the process, did you have to do any interviews?
So personally, no, I didn't have to do any interviews, but some universities do require you to do interviews. And again, it also depends on your degree. So some degrees require interviews. But for my degree in my university, no, all I needed to do was submit the application, and that was the entire selection process.
And like, how important would you, I just remembered, you know how in high school, teachers would really emphasize that you should participate in extracurricular activities, that it would give you like a bonus when you're applying for universities. From your experience, how important are extracurricular activities during your application?
I think they're very important in terms of they help show that you have certain qualities that you get from extracurricular activities. I feel like they help you give you that edge. I think maybe compared to applications, for example, in the US, maybe extracurricular activities aren't as emphasized in the UK. I feel like maybe they focus more on the academic side, but having that and maybe adding it to your personal statement can help you like build on, show them that you have certain skills, that you
Mm.
have other interests. And I think adding them in is actually something that can really help make you stand out. So if you have them, that's great. If it's too late and you don't have any extracurricular activities, don't worry. I feel like you can still apply to the UK.
And I think now just you talking about it, I'm thinking like these activities might also help you when you're writing your mission statement, like your personal statement, because you're not
Yes.
someone who is very like graded focused. So you know how to sell yourself using other particular skills that you may have or people's skills that you may have. So yeah. And then when it comes to financial requirements, for studying in the UK. Were there any financial documents or requirements that you needed to provide during the application process?
So the application process itself, I think not really. Like they just asked how you plan on funding yourself. But then during the visa application, I think you need to have some financial documents for that.
Hmm. So actually, can you touch on your visa application process? How was it? Was there any obstacle? Was there any challenges or like the tough part about it, or like what's needed? And maybe what time frame should you start working on your visa before going to the UK?
I think the visa application process is so long. I would recommend starting it as early as possible. Personally, I started it 3 months before, and I thought that was a lot of time. But literally, I was working on it every day because there's so many documents you need to like put together. It's just a long application. There's so many things that you need to do, and there's so many things that I personally didn't understand because this was my first time doing visa. So I was trying to like uh understand everything, get all my documents together, and I feel and after that, so like it's you have to do an application process and then you have to get like a TB test and then go to your appointment and then submit your documents. So for example, I didn't realize that you had to take your to do your TB test before, and literally the day before my appointment, someone told me, fortunately, like, oh, have you done this? I was like, wait, no. So I had to like make an appointment for the morning so I could so I could submit it by that afternoon. So I feel like start it as early as possible so that if you do make mistakes, you have time to rectify it and still like submit your
Mm,
visa in time.
yeah.
Uh, but yeah.
And I think you really responded to that question very well. And I think another thing that I wanted to ask, what advice would you have for someone who's been accepted to study in the UK? So like what tips would you give them for preparing to move to a new country, particularly the UK. Yeah, like what do you think they should have in mind in terms of also the social life and anything? Yeah.
So in terms of things that they need to do, I feel like the firstly things that you need to organize before you come here. So for example, you need to look into getting a bank account. I think it was very hard for me to get a bank account before, I mean, coming here. I think maybe it either could be the entire UK or it's just Scotland, but please, like I would recommend that you look into that before you come here because I went 6 months without one and that was very difficult. Look for having a phone, like getting a card, because once you get here, you're gonna need internet to get to your accommodation or something like that. So either pre-order one when you're home. For me, actually, UCAS sent me like a phone, so a phone SIM, so that was very good. Or buy one at the airport, like look into that. Also look into different service providers. There are a lot that offer student discounts to people, to students. Um, and then just look into, in terms of culture, you can do a lot of research, like watch YouTube videos, look at how different people interact. And I feel like the biggest thing is just like joining a community of people, looking to join a community of people when you get here. I feel like it does make living abroad so much easier because you have people who understand what you're going through and you can rely on them. And usually they help you so much in your transition because you're transitioning together and you're all facing similar problems and you're living abroad most likely for the first time together. So I think having a community, in the university, there's so many societies that you can join, like the African Society or anything else. Join that in your first weeks, and I think that helped a lot. Yeah.
Awesome. I think you've really answered like almost all my questions. That I think it would lay a good foundation for someone who wants to go and study to the UK. You know, like from this conversation, I know someone now knows the the documents they need to study, and if you're someone who does not know what to do, like when you're going to university or like how to choose a course, it's been laid down on this video. But also, again, you could check out our platform, Shasha Networks, and or contact our team and just to offer assistance on how you guys could do that. Thank you so much, Munashe. Do you have anything for me or for everyone else? Do you have any, final words? Yeah.
Well, firstly, thank you so much for having me. My final words are just enjoy the process.
Mhm.
I feel like living abroad is so fun, and if you have the opportunity to do it, I would take it. So enjoy the process and good luck with your applications.
Awesome. I was gonna wrap up and say bye, but I just remembered one last question. That I'm
Okay.
not sure if maybe you may be able to answer me, but you're still in your second year. I was gonna ask, have you found employment in like in the UK?
Yes, so I am in my second last year, and usually this is the year when most people get internships for the summer, and then you have your grad roles after you graduate. So I think in terms of getting internships, I would just recommend start building your CV early. So join societies, do any internships, even if they're prepaid, they're unpaid before. Just work on building those soft skills because like I feel like in the UK, what they're mostly looking for is the soft skills as opposed to the hard skills. So do things that work on your communication, organization, and different other soft skills. Learn from Shasha, they're very good at that. And just build your soft skills, your CV, and I feel like that's what you need to land your first internship or job in the UK.
Amazing. I think that wraps it up. And do you think like how easy or how hard is it for someone to get employment now in the UK? Like the after life after completing your studies.
I feel like any place is very competitive to get like employment. So I would again suggest starting early. Know which industries you want to go in from it doesn't have to be set, but at least have an idea. And then from there, look at what requirements are they looking for? How do people land their first jobs? I feel like it's all about being intentional from the beginning. Because if you're not, it can become a little bit more difficult. And then don't be afraid to put in your applications. Don't be afraid to get rejections. Like I feel like that's all part of the learning process. And I think like if you put in the work, I feel like it's quite like you can get employment. I don't think
Yeah.
it's obviously difficult, but I think it's very possible for everyone.
Yeah, I really love that positive energy because I think I also believe the same. If you just set up the right foundation, connect with people, network with people, and people could also end up referring you. So yeah, I think that's very important. Thank you so much, Munashe. We've come to the end of our call. I hope that you will be joining us in any other future content making. Yeah, you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.